Hello again, football fans, and welcome to another episode of Miners Live, a special morning edition of Miners Live. It is RFL Saturday morning. We've got games lined up for you this afternoon, and so I'm testing something out here. I'm kicking the tires on possibly doing Saturday morning shows rather than Wednesday evening
Sorry, that
shows
that would have
for you
driven me
guys.
crazy.
Oh, you're fine.
What's up,
Uh,
guys?
so we'll get things going. We've got plenty to talk about. I've got Anthony Fry with me to talk about our game. We'll talk a little bit about that. For those of you that saw the agenda as we were coming on before we actually came on, plenty of things that are going on throughout the RFL, the good, the bad, even the ugly, right now in the RFL world. So without any further ado, Fry, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, what's going on, everybody? I'm sitting here at work per usual, and
Yeah.
happy to jump in on here, man. Saturdays are fun days. I'm happy for all the football we're gonna get to see. There's some good matchups and some intriguing matchups, and then of course our game to discuss from last night and our game to look forward to tomorrow night.
Yeah, so I guess let's just go ahead and jump right into that. So we got the first RFL win of the season, the 38-27 victory on the road, which was nice, against the Oklahoma City Bisons. Now the Bisons are 0-3. Listen, you can make a case that, this win doesn't really do much. The Bisons are arguably one of the worst teams in the RFL right now. They've sort of got a long way to go. So what does this win mean for us? Well, maybe not that much in the sense that we beat the Bisons, but at the same time, it means a lot because this was the first RFL win for this group, right? So you tell me, what were your thoughts about this one?
I'm happy to get this win. Any win's important, and especially when you've got a rookie quarterback and you've got a bunch of rookies and second-year guys that are stepping in. Bain had a really interesting statistic he pulled up that I think we had 10 starters on our offensive defensive side of the ball that were under 22 years old. So any win's important, and this felt good to go out there, especially against a divisional opponent that we're going to play regularly going forward. So I'm happy with it. We don't have any bad takeaways. In fact, despite the multiple injuries that we dealt with, we just kept putting people out there and kept making plays, and I'm excited about the win.
Yeah, I think that you kind of touched on something there that shouldn't be overshadowed, and that's the fact that there was a lot of injuries in that game.
The
And
studs.
and not only were they two key players, but they were all of our players, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
we had four players go out in the middle of that in that game. Plus we had one player that didn't even play in that game. So we had five players
I
at
forgot
some
about
point.
Oliveros. Yeah.
Right. So we had at some point we had a maximum of five players in our starting lineup that were not playing in that game. And I don't recall, maybe you do. I don't recall anybody from the Bisons leaving that game.
I don't
Obviously, they have a
remember.
couple guys hurt already, but
Yeah. They had that lineman and receiver that were injured in week one, but I don't believe they had any injuries in that game. And then, like you said, Oliveros, uh,
right.
a top RFL top 100 safety of ours, he had an ankle injury in practice and missed a week, which allowed rookie Culpepper to step in, who had a pick six. So,
Right.
next man up for sure.
Right. So I think one thing that is pretty interesting about our matchup with the Bisons, obviously we play them twice a year. We're both in the ARC South. But I think something that's going to develop in a cool storyline between us and the Bisons is that we have almost like we have a division rivalry, but we also have a bit of a sibling
Some family
family
connection. Yeah.
family rivalry, right? Because we have Eric Ashley on our team and the Bisons have Alvin Mack on their team. For those of you that don't know, they are brothers. And then we have Jakari Torres on our team, and they have Joseph Torres on their team, and they're cousins. So, I think that's really cool. In this league where we're constantly trying to find new storylines to kind of promote the league. I really do think that's one of the cooler storylines right now, especially because it's easy to come up with a storyline for, you know, the Explorers and the Thunderbirds because they battle each other for the division every year. Like those little top of the division type storylines or, playoff rivalry storylines, those are easy, right?
Yeah.
Finding these ones like this, these are the cool ones. So I think that's something really.
And people are writing our division off because I've heard a couple coaches talk about we have the weakest division, and I won't argue when you look at some of the other teams out there, but when we play these divisional games, they're still competitive. They're still going to be knockdown, drag out fights.
Right.
So there's always going to be something worth watching.
All right, so I'm going to take a quick peek out in the chat. I know I saw a bunch of people in here. So I see Austin Briley, the Brooklyn Bulls are here. Deshaun Evans, McCain's here, Baines here, Ashley's here. All of our guys are here.
Yeah, Mac, to that, y'all did have a old lineman that was injured, but Smitty went and signed a higher.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, Smitty went and signed a 76 guy out of free agency, and he played over what was supposed to be Brewer. So you were supposed to have a 69 outside tackle playing, and
I still don't
Smitty
know
was
how
able
that
to do some
happened.
magic in free agency to save y'all on that matchup. Because can you imagine Anton Burley and Griggs going against a unfortunately rookie and Brewster? That would have been a pretty tough battle for him. So injuries were all around. Chad Heath, for those who don't know who he is, that's who we acquired in the Pestock trade. We got Chad Heath, a 26-year-old.
No. Heath was in the Chumlee trade.
Chumlee trade. I'm sorry, forgive me. Yeah, Chumlee trade. Yeah, so he got injured. He goes out. Next guy comes in, and then Burley, our X factor, outside linebacker, fire rusher, he goes out, and then Damani Manuel goes down, and then Kendall Booker. It was a lot, but everybody stepped up. That was a good game.
Yeah, it was tough. At one point, I felt like the game was pretty well in hand, but I was more concerned with 4 guys leaving in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
I assumed that at least one of them was going to be out for a significant amount of time. So we got lucky. None of them are going to miss the game this week.
Yeah, that's very fortunate.
Yeah, so we're pretty lucky there. So let's talk a little bit about the game this week. We've got the Red Dragons, which first non-divisional RFL game for us this year. So we'll be taking on the Red Dragons. And what are you looking for most in this one?
The Red Dragons are the most beatable they've ever been, but they still have one of the most devastating rosters to look at. They got talent everywhere. So there's you can't come into this game just expecting a win just because they're struggling. They've got, Savoy obviously, and then Scott. They've got talent on the offensive side. Their defense is very intimidating. I think they cause more fumbles than anybody. They're just big hitters at every position. So despite how bad they're looking, we still have to play on top of our game because all they have to do is click once and they're a good team again.
Yeah, I think this is sort of, considering we're in week 4, you could make an argument that this game is almost a must-win game for the Red Dragons. Because if they lose this game, then you're really looking at a Red Dragons team that is now 1-3, and I believe their only win would have been a force win.
Yeah,
right. So they lost to
Brooklyn and to the Pioneers.
Right. And then week 3, they got the force win because they played an NFL team. So if they lose this game, and their first 2 games were at home, right? So they lost 2 RFL games at home, then they get a force win, and now they're on the road against us. I'll get into this a little bit more in something that I'm going to talk about in a bit here, but if the Red Dragons lose this game, it's almost like, do you just mail it in?
Yeah.
You're 0-3, 2 of them are at home. You can't make the playoff. You can't make the RFL playoffs with. You probably can't make the RFL playoffs with 5 losses. Maybe you can. I think last year, now that we've gone to 7 teams, I think you can get in with 5 if you win the division, and the division is just that tight. But for the most part, you've got to have 4 losses or less. And if the Red Dragons lose to us this weekend, that's 3 losses already, and we're only in week 4. I feel like for them at that point, you've got to reassess the situation.
Is to get it together for your conference games. That's
the divisional games.
Win division. I'm sorry, win your division games. And that's the only way. If we lose that's what we're looking at. If we come across some of these big matchups we got with the Bulldogs and with CT and with the Red Dragons, like it's gonna be tough matchups. But as long as we continue to win inside our own group, we've got a better chance. Our own division.
Right. So we've got the Red Dragons this weekend. Obviously, that's on Sunday night. Plenty of RFL action this afternoon on Saturday for you guys. So that will kick off at 1:00 this afternoon. But I'm going to move on from some of the game stuff and just kind of real quick get into my little morning done deal here. And listen, my done deal for this week is kind of pretty simple, and it's unfortunate. It's not great for the Chicago Cougars, but their star free safety, Chris Polk, has been suspended for this game. So he will not play.
That's a tough loss for them because he's already cemented himself as a part of that defense.
Yeah. I
They,
mean,
they've got crazy talent around them.
they do. I mean, they've got a great team. I got to refresh my memory now.
Mark Hill is at the other safety, and
right. But who are they playing today?
I'll pull it up. Because I know they're the televised game to the Huskies.
Okay.
Huskies. And they're struggling.
Right. The Huskies are struggling, but maybe this is a get back game for the Huskies, right? I talk about the Red Dragons. Now that's kind of a must win for them. The Huskies have all these high expectations, right? They go out and they get AJ Pestock from us, and they make these moves to get these veteran star caliber players to help them win now.
Yeah.
But if the Huskies don't win this game without Chris Polk, you almost think, are they destined to finish last in that division?
Yeah, when you go into win now mode like that, making those trades, and you're getting rid of current and future picks, you got to hit on that. And so far they're struggling. Maybe we'll see what happens as the season goes on with different playbooks and different schemes. But right now the Huskies just don't look like what we were expecting, and it's kind of more on the defensive side for them. So we'll see what happens. But it could easily be they could be out of the picture quick.
Yeah, for sure. Same with the Red Dragons. So here's Chris Polk in the chat. Unfortunate. The boys got to get it done. He's right. I think the lesson to be learned here, and sure, you can all, throw shade and you can criticize and rip him all you want for doing whatever and getting and causing himself to get suspended. You could do that if you wanted to.
Yeah, but
however,
right,
exactly. That. And that's the key takeaway here, is that you're looking at a guy who's understands, you know what, I did something wrong and this is the consequence for it. And so now I'm going to learn from it. And I think that lesson is the bigger lesson. And it is a lesson that I feel more people should be learning in the RFL, and they're just not. So, unfortunate that the Cougars are going to be without Chris Polk. I'm glad to see he's in here and he's owning up to it. Good for him. So, he will obviously be welcomed back to the field in week 5. So again, we wish nothing but the best for him moving forward. And we hope that, that is just in the past and he's able to kind of move on from it.
We get them week 9. So obviously the Cougars are a team we're paying attention to. They're not in our division, but any game with anybody you want to be prepared for. And so we're taking that game serious. And when week 9 rolls around, we want to play them at their best and us at our best. And
right.
We want that pride of that win.
Yeah, it'll be a good one.
Same with the River Hogs in week 15.
So as much as the Chicago Cougars are dealing with some issues and not being able to have Chris Polk on the field this weekend, there's another team in the RFL that's dealing with significantly more issues than the Chicago Cougars, and that is the Brooklyn Barons. Okay, so right now the Brooklyn Barons, I don't know what's going on with anything in the organization. I try to wrap my head around it. I've got some stuff and I'm glad that you're here, Fry, because you can chime in on this and tell me what your thoughts are. I've put together a timeline kind of events for what's going on with the Brooklyn Barons.
Mhm.
I have laid out some
I'm pretty excited to see this.
yeah, I mean, I've laid out some numbers so that you guys can all see what is out there. It's out there for everybody to see, right? So nothing that you're about to see here in the next few minutes is anything that is made up. It's not anything that I just did on my own and is coming out of nowhere. It is all stuff that is available for you to see and you to listen to and you to hear either on someone's podcast, on the Neon Sports website, on the YouTube channel while watching the games, whatever. This is all information that is out there. And again, I say all that because I am absolutely mind blown at what is going on in Brooklyn right now. I don't understand it. And even more so, I think what's causing me to just go crazy about this situation is that rather than own and accept what I think is blatantly obvious, I feel like there's way too much defending going on. Like, I'm looking at this situation right now, and the only thing that I can think of is that this is the RFL equivalent of Jerry Jones being completely lost with the organization and simply laying out for us whatever narrative he wants, completely disregarding what's actually going on with the organization and simply telling us what he wants us to hear. And so,
as a Dallas Cowboy fan, that hits really close to home.
But you agree, but it's
like
true.
When he ran Jimmy Johnson off.
And it's true. So, okay. So that's my lead in for this. And I will start with, like I said, I've got a little bit of a timeline, if you will, of events with what's gone on with the Brooklyn Barons. And so I'm going to go ahead and lay this out for you guys right here. So here we are. How did we get here? Right? How did we get to this point? Okay. So let's take a look back. So we got to go all the way back. We've got to go all the way back to December 18th. For those of you guys that don't know, December 18th was day 3 of the RFL draft.
I remember this.
Day 3 of the RFL draft. The San Diego Red Dragons, conveniently enough, our opponent this weekend, are on the clock at 2:10 p.m. on Sunday, December 18th. And the Brooklyn Barons are up next.
This was round 5, right?
This is round 5. This is the second pick in round 5 that the Red Dragons have. The Red Dragons at 2:13 p.m. with the 130th pick in the draft, they took quarterback out of Maryland, Chip Taylor. Now, immediately, if you guys were watching the draft coverage, I was on it. There was 6 of us broadcasting the draft live as it was happening. Immediately, there was conversation and speculation about, well, the Barons have Brinker on the trade block, so they're looking to trade Brinker, and they haven't drafted a quarterback yet in this class. Do we think that maybe they want to take a quarterback here? And did we think that maybe they wanted Chip Taylor? Right? Like, that was sort of the questioning that was going on from 2:13 to 2:19, right? In that 5 or 6 minute period, that's what we were talking about. Then at 2:19, the pick comes in, and the Brooklyn Barons select Austin Briley, quarterback out of Michigan. Great.
Whenever I was watching the draft too, when the Red Dragons picked up Chip Taylor, Roland in the chat said, "Oh, that was my guy. Now I got to make a pivot or something." And he said something. I remember specifically, and it could have caught my attention because I was like, "Okay, Chip Taylor is a running quarterback. He was considering that guy. That makes sense." So I wasn't thinking Briley at all. I'm thinking, what's the next running quarterback? Who's he got? I wasn't expecting the Briley pick here.
So I think here's what happened. And again, I love Coach Woods. I love all of the RFL coaches because the amount of commitment and dedication it takes to run one of these organizations, this is not anything personal against Coach Woods.
Roland, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that, to my point earlier about sort of not having a direction and not knowing what's going on within your organization, or being completely oblivious to what's going on in your organization, I think that's what happened right here. Yes, 1 minute later, it was confirmed that the Barons wanted Chip Taylor, right? So it's weird to get sniped. And by sniped, I mean one pick, like the pick right in front of you. It's weird. It happens in like round 1 and round 2 and maybe round 3. It doesn't happen in round 5. For you to have the guy in round 5, we're talking about, the range of outcomes for round 5 and 6 and 7 is way out there. So for you to get sniped like that, it sucks. I feel for Coach Woods. But at the same time, to not have another guy on your board ready to go, I think that's maybe a little bit of poor planning. I literally think that in this moment, he didn't know what to do and simply took the next quarterback there. And I say a little bit of poor planning because also, again, Brinker was on the trade block this entire time. Why was Ryan Brinker not traded before the draft? There's no reason for you to go into the draft with Ryan Brinker on your roster if he's on the trade block. You saw me trade Chumlee. You saw Lane Kearney switch teams. You saw Devin Wade switch teams. You saw quarterbacks on the move, and you waited and waited and waited, and maybe your asking price was way too much, but that's on you. And now you're stuck, and you draft Briley, and now Brinker has no value whatsoever because he's a starter for you. Again, this is on December 18th, but you just lost all that, negotiating power because you took another quarterback. All right. And then we have a little bit of a lull, right? Then we go from post-draft into building the rosters and all of that, and we're in this sort of calm before the storm, right? Fry, you know what this is like. You went through this last year. Yeah. It's a little bit of a downtime. Well, then we get to January 30th, which is
slow time.
Yes, it's extremely slow, but it's great for teams to get comfortable with their locker room. And that's really what it's about. That month
for us.
Yeah, it was great for us. So now we get to week 1, and the Barons have the Thunderbirds. They get absolutely waxed, but Briley comes in and makes his RFL debut in week 1 against the Thunderbirds in a blowout loss, but he didn't look bad. He was 12 of 14. He had, I think, 98 yards passing, drove him down the field, got him to the goal line, went for it on 4th down, didn't get it. Obviously they're going for it on 4th down. They were down by 33.
Can I step in and make a point about this
real
quick? Because this is exactly what happened there. Is the same thing that happened at the end of our game with the Bison. In this Madden logic, whenever you jump ahead that much, the defense you're playing, when they're up 30 points, they just start running 3-man rushes and prevent and dropping back. You can pick them apart all day. You have all day to throw the ball. So it's not exactly the same. With what you're looking at, that snapshot is not the same thing as the snapshot of what Brinker would have gotten in the first quarter when you had mixed up defenses and everyone coming full speed at you. So it's not just to look at the stat line alone isn't an accurate picture of just all the factors that came into play for that.
Okay, so I just got to throw this out there because it's here. And again, guys, anything that you say can and will be used against you on Miners Live. Okay, so here's Austin Briley. That's why he took me. I was the first ever quarterback he talked about drafting, even before Tyon got goofy. Dude, he wanted the guy who got picked right before you more than he wanted you, right? I understand it might be a tough pill to swallow, but pull a Chris Paul here, pull a CP, and at least own it. Just own it.
Yeah, I mean, anyone you were looking to take in the 5th round anyways, I'm just not expecting that to be your future guy, not a now guy, maybe someone you want to develop and work on. But yeah, generally what you're grabbing in round 5, you're not finding Tom Brady's.
No, and listen, again, Briley played well. The biggest knock on him,
credit than a lot of people do. Yeah, in college.
The biggest knock on him in college was he had no awareness. Well, guess what? If you look at all, and I'll get into the side-by-side comparison here in a minute, but if you look at it, it's not that crazy. It's just the way that it went down and the way that it all transpired is just, in my opinion, entirely unacceptable. It's a merry-go-round. It's a circus, if you will. Right now, I feel like the Brooklyn Barons are they're just a circus. It's like they're being run by Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, right? So after the week 1 game, Briley gets praised for his performance, as he should. There was a lot of people out there that came to his defense, came to his aid, and said, "Wow, Briley looked pretty good. He only had 2 incomplete passes. It's not his fault they didn't get in the end zone. Normally, you would have kicked a field goal in that situation, right?" So then we go a couple days later, and suddenly, based on that small sample size of the week 1 game against the Thunderbirds, the rumor mill starts churning. And well, Brinker's on the trade block. Should Briley be starting? Why don't the Barons start Briley? They brought him in the game here, and he didn't look that bad. And Brinker's on the trade block. Clearly, Coach Woods doesn't love Brinker. Why don't we start Austin Briley? And that narrative is out there. And I think,
of course, hold on. Sorry. Of course, McCall, we're not going to show any part of our hand leading up to the draft, like one bit. So yeah, no, of course we were completely being nonsensical with all of that. Yeah, you're not going to sit there and tip your hat, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's not a circus. That's me. That's strategic. Like, I'm not telling you who I'm going to take. And if you remember correctly, I did exactly what I said. Everyone thought that I was going to take I had 3 first-round picks. I told you guys I wasn't going to take a quarterback at 12. I told you if I took a quarterback in the first round, it was probably my last first-round pick. And it's exactly what I did. So, I mean,
I wish I could pull up the timestamps of where you and I were talking for months leading up to the draft, and multiple times we both said, "Man, our best case scenario would be EA, Bain, and Miles," and then and we were like, "That'll never happen." And then it fell in our lap.
All right, what do we got here? I mean, see, so here's where I have a hard time, because again, here's the difference between a situation like CP dealing with what he's dealing with, and here's the difference between a situation with Austin Briley and dealing with what he's dealing with. Literally, right now, the only thing that Briley can say is something to make himself feel better and defend himself, rather than just own up to what's factual. Like, again, he's trying to throw us under the bus for our draft strategy. No, dude, I'm not going to tell you who I'm taking. I'm on the live broadcast. Now, his very next comment, Dunn sent me a recruiting form after arguing that I would be top 3 at the end of season 3. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? Guys, show of hands in the chat. If I didn't send you a recruiting form, say hi. Like, everyone in here got a recruiting form, so that doesn't mean anything. And
pointed that out, yeah.
And you were at the end of season 3, there weren't as many great quarterbacks. You have to remember, Miles McCain didn't look that great in season 3. We had Monty Wyatt, we had Calvin Poole, and Alan Mourning looked like a good quarterback in season 3. Okay, so like, rather than, like, this is what's mind blowing to me. You're taking something that I may have said to you as a compliment, and you are turning it around to make it look like a negative on me. Like, dude, you are trying to insult even the people that are giving you compliments. Like, this is so bizarre to me, and so, like, on brand, I guess, is the best way of putting it. If I had to put word on this, it's on brand right now, but I just don't understand why. Right. So, okay. So I digress a little bit there.
Yeah. So the rumor mill. Yeah.
So we're back to February 3rd now. And Coach Woods goes on his podcast, which, for those of you who don't know, Rolling with the Barons, he has his own podcast, and it's only audio form, but he does it every week. And so he goes on to his podcast, and this is on February 3rd. I have wholeheartedly wanted to start Austin Briley. This is what he says on February 3rd. Regardless of what everybody may think, it hasn't been because he's a user, and it hasn't been because he's a rookie. So he's not starting because he's a user. And he wouldn't start because he's a rookie. So I'm going to take that off the screen right now because I need you guys to understand what's going on right now. Okay. If he isn't going to start, okay, let me just say this again. I've wholeheartedly wanted to start Austin Briley, regardless of what everybody may think. It hasn't been because he's a user, which means you want to start him, but the reason why you want to start him isn't because he's a user. Okay. And it hasn't been because he's a rookie, which means you want to start him, and it hasn't been because he's a rookie. So the reasons why you want to start him are not because he's a user and not because he's a rookie. So what's left on the table here, guys? The reason you want to start him is because he's awesome. He's better than Brinker. The reason you want, if you don't want, if it's not because he's a rookie and it's not because he's a user, which, sorry, Miles McCain, I'm just going to throw it out there. That's exactly why I'm starting you, because you are a rookie and because you are a user. And on top of that, I'm sorry, McCain. I'm sorry. I apologize for what I just did, and I lumped you into this, and that's blasphemous. Okay,
their situations are not the same.
No, it's mind-blowingly different.
That too.
Like,
and they're not in the same situations. Not even close. And please stop referring to Briley as Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel is one of the most prolific quarterbacks in college.
Oh, come on. Okay, fine. Then we'll refer to him as Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, that's fine. Baker Mayfield, that guy was a scrub.
Johnny Manziel how about Baker Mayfield? How about like JV Baker Mayfield?
Yeah.
Can we call him like
if you
Pop Warner Baker Mayfield?
Wish.com, and that's what showed up.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that, which again, I don't understand what your reasoning is for starting him. He goes on to say that Briley has looked good in tape and on film. Okay, fine. All right, I get it. If you guys have got some secret society going on that you're breaking down film on an offline file that doesn't look the same, I can attest to that. Then he goes on. Again, I wholeheartedly know that with a 68 overall player that is Austin Briley, I can win with him. Okay. I understand confidence, but you couldn't win with Ryan Brinker, and Ryan Brinker is better.
Yeah, I was talking with QPOC last season, and I was looking at the Barons offense, and they have a very talented offense. Their weapons are good. Steele's a good running back. And if you look at Brinker's stats, he's not a bad quarterback at all. He's just in the wrong scheme and the wrong system. If they flip things around and they try to mimic what the Aviators do, I think they would have a phenomenal run game and Ryan Brinker making good passes. I think they have a really good a good thing going.
This is okay. So I didn't star these. Where are we? I wish I had starred these. All right. I don't know. I lost it. Okay. So anyway, he then goes on. So this is Coach Woods again on his podcast on February 3rd. He then goes on to say the two biggest things why I'm not going to do it. Again, in referring to starting Austin Briley. He's not going to start Austin Briley because, again, remember, we're going to go back to the timeline here. This was right after the January 30th game. The rumor mill starts on February 1st, and then Roland goes on his podcast on February 3rd. You can see it right there on the timeline, right? So on February 3rd on the podcast, he goes on the two biggest things why I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to start him. I'm not going to do it. Number one, as much as I like the fact that he's off the cuff and he speaks his mind and he ruffles feathers, I'm not a fan of the discipline that comes with it. Well, you know what? That is the most logical and sensical thing that I have heard out of the Barons organization in a month. You are 100% correct. Everything about that is an accurate and truthful statement, and I respect and appreciate Coach Woods for making that statement. For now, I'm not a fan of the discipline that comes with it, and then I can't have the face of the franchise being the reputation that Austin Briley has now. Doubling down. That is the greatest quote to come out of the Barons organization as long as I've been in the league. And possibly as long as the Barons have been in the league, possibly as long as Coach Woods has been in the league. That is the best statement ever. The two biggest things, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to start him. I'm not going to do it. Number one, as much as I like the fact that he's off the cuff, he speaks his mind, he ruffles feathers, I'm not a fan of the discipline that comes with it. And then I can't have the face of the franchise being the reputation that Austin Riley has. And now, again, I'm going to go over to the chat right now because I promise you, rather than just maybe Homer Simpson his way into the hedges or like say something that we might respect and understand, Briley's in the chat right now, probably trying to defend the situation and make somebody else feel bad about it. Like if I say something to you and you don't agree with it, you might think to yourself, well, whatever, Dunn just, I don't agree with Dunn. Dunn doesn't agree with me. Right. But then if the next day Coach Back says the same thing to you, you might be like, well, whatever, Dunn and Back are stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. And then 3 days later, Smitty comes to you and Smitty says the same thing. At what point do you stop and look in the mirror and say to yourself, maybe there is something that I'm doing. Maybe there is something. Maybe it's not me. Like,
it's not always
first,
someone else's fault.
Right. First Dunn said it, then Back said it, then Smitty said it, like, maybe I should take a step back here. And that's all we're asking. That's literally all that we're asking in this situation right now. And we're just not getting it. Instead, we're getting excuses and, I'm going to defend myself for this, that, and the other thing. Like nobody wants to hear that. Yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
Then we move.
And there's been some really good points brought up in the chat too. A lot of good conversation. And I see Smitty reference here talking about, he told Roland, if you feel like that's the move, man, make that move. But not a single person in the front office has ever said anything before that up until like about Roland's job being on the hot seat. It was just a pretty picked up consensus. Like, man, the Barons aren't playing as good as they should. And it's clear that their scheme and playbook, which they can fix, is the problem, and it's not being fixed. So yeah, I feel like everyone's seeing like writing on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: if Roland wanted to make the move in week 1, right? Like if he all this could have been solved.
Really good. I'm sorry, I apologize, Dunn, but this is good. If you can see what Smitty put, this is about the coach more than anything. Log out, like, don't try to make this about you, like, and this probably would be the best.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Briley thing.
Yeah. Like Roland, this is a bunch like Briley is what we're talking about here, but it's just because he is what Roland is, who right. Roland's working with. So we're talking about Roland and his coaching decisions. It just happens to be Briley's name involved, and he's just having a hard time separating himself from that.
Right. So again, I can't stress enough. All of this could have been avoided if Brinker had been traded before the draft. Mm-hmm. Briley was drafted. Briley would have been the starter. None of this would have happened. The only thing that would be on this timeline right now is the first 3 bullet points here. Everything else would have just been, it wouldn't have made sense for me to talk about. It wouldn't have mattered, right? Like everything after, if you're looking at the timeline right now on your screen, everything after those arrows is meaningless. If Brinker is traded before the draft, Briley gets drafted, he's the starter week 1. There's no need to really talk about it. Clearly he's the starter week 1. Unless they want to start Russell Rennis, but that's a different story. That's not.
Well, that's something. He's the forgotten guy in this whole thing. Rennis is still. Brinker's an 84. Rennis is an 83 star quarterback. I know he's older. I know he's 30, but that guy's been completely forgotten all this. And when you look at what he's got statistically with his attributes, he's not far under Brinker, and he's just as high above what Briley is. So I don't know what their scheming and game planning has looked like, but Renez has been completely overlooked in all of this.
All right. So I know guys are getting more and more in the chat, and I apologize if I'm not getting your comments or questions in here. There's a lot to go over, and I'm trying to get through it all, and don't really have as much time to go through and get those comments. So I do apologize if I'm not getting your comments and you really want me to dive a little bit deeper into it. So here we are. So we're on February 3rd. Roland says no. Then we go to week 2 on February 4th, week 3 on February 11th. Briley's nowhere to be found, right? So, all right, Roland's sticking with his guns. I'm not going to start Briley. I'm not going to start him. Even though I think, honestly, if it were me, I would have started him week 1. Like, I think there's for Roland to be on the hot seat if Austin Briley doesn't work out. You can't determine whether Austin Briley works out in year 1 as a rookie, right? So, like, I can't imagine Roland being fired if Roland had started Austin Briley from week 1 and the Barons went, 5 or like 6, they won like 1 RFL game or 2 RFL games. I don't know why you fire him, unless it's if you still had Brinker on the roster, because, well, then that's just stupid. But if you had traded Brinker, you could have bought yourself a year. I mean, when you draft a quarterback in the 5th round and that's your starting quarterback, like, you expect growing pains. You're not going to fire the coach for that. Like, the team's not expected to be that good, especially in that division, especially in that conference, right? So Briley doesn't play week 2. He doesn't play week 3. And then we have Rolling with the Barons on February 12th. And this is where things get interesting. And Roland decides he's going to name Austin Briley as the starter. And one of the things that he says on that podcast that night was, quote, "We have not had an issue moving the ball." He's talking about his offense so far in the season. You haven't had an issue moving the ball. Okay. Who is your starting quarterback that's helping you to not have issues moving the ball? It's not Austin Briley. Like, you literally are on your episode where you're breaking the news that Austin Briley is the starter, but then you say how to this point you have not had an issue moving the ball. Well, that's because Ryan Brinker has been moving the ball. So again, it's one of those things that I just don't understand why you would basically compliment Brinker and how he's doing a great job moving the ball for your offense, and then turn around and announce Briley as the starter. He goes on.
Yeah. And for me, it's like I'm trying to pull in context clues because I wasn't here for the season 6 when I believe that's the year the Barons had their success.
Right,
So,
they went to the playoffs.
yeah,
And that's
so
what he's talking about, like
I
years
see a
ago.
lot of context clues referring to that happening, and it's somewhere along the lines. Roland has really stuck with this idea of running the read option. At first, I thought it was a joke. I didn't think a coach would be doing that, and I didn't understand what was happening. But it seems like, yeah, he just really wants to run with that system, even if he doesn't have the personnel to fit it.
Right. And, if you have the system that you want to run, like, I'm a firm believer in, I am not going to take my beliefs.
Smitty wanted to hop on to throw in some clarification.
Yeah. Where is he?
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Where is he?
The
Hold on.
comments come like 10, 15 seconds behind us. But yeah, Smitty's made a couple comments about he'd be happy to come on and shed some light.
Here we go.
Says he's ready for, once this is over, for this conversation to be done. And
this is done.
Yeah, this is it's fun to look at.
I should have this as the done deal, right? Because this is done. It's over.
That whole timeline was hilarious. The time that was spit into that was awesome. And they got the Tigers as a matchup you were talking about. And then Explorers next week. Like, that's a tough game. Renez, the whole thing I want to Nelly's talking about it too, Renez sitting there just kind of forgotten about.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see here Kennard Rodon here basically to that point.
Yeah.
There's 80 plus QBs going to waste, right? So
yeah, there's older quarterbacks in the league that Brinker could go sit behind for a year or two. I mean, if he's willing to make the right trades, somebody's going to want him.
Right. All right, so we'll go back to the timeline a little bit here before, as we wait for Smitty to come on.
Not us, of course. We're set for the future on quarterbacks.
All right, so we'll just kind of finish up the timeline a bit before Smitty gets here again. So on February 12th, Briley's the starting quarterback. He announces it. And I guess my point to this whole thing is, why would you do it now? If you were going to do it in week 1. But now you're going to do it where you got week 4 against the Tigers that are an improving team. And then you're going to put Briley on the road against the Columbus Explorers. And you expect him to not get exposed in that game. I just think the whole thing is just poor timing. And on that note, I'm going to get Smitty in here to provide his.
While you're getting Smitty to hop in, I want to reach out, make a comment to Coach Frankie talking about he's got Matt Jones in there pitching on his roster, and he's still starting OJ. This is a little different scenario.
Right.
Owen Jack showed himself to be a great college quarterback. He came in at the end of last season and played very well. And when you made the move to him, he answered the call. So it's not an entirely different scenario for you with having that lower guy, but he's playing well. Obviously, you saw something how he fits into your system. And honestly, whatever quarterback you find that's going to throw to your 7'10" receiver, put that guy in. And OJ's doing that, so I'd run him too.
All right, so we've got somebody here. We're going to go ahead and just bury this. Like we're like a couple of pallbearers right here, just carrying this narrative to the cemetery to bury it. So what's up, Smitty?
To hear me?
Up,
yeah, we good. Okay, what's up, man?
Good morning.
Hey, yeah, I wanted to get on because I'm ready to. I don't know why my camera flipped look weird, but anyway, I'm ready to just get this, put everything out there because there's a lot of things that people don't see behind the scenes, which leads to my decisions. And there's a lot of players that fall victim to trying to stick up for their coaches in certain situations. Y'all know me personally. I don't put coaches on blast like that, even though it's a lot of dumb things coaches have done in this league. But that's not what I'm supposed to do here. Right. I talk with them about it, and I still keep there's coaches that have been fired that's left that y'all don't know situations about, and sure. And you would never know about it because there's no need for me to, put that. I'm not trying to put that on coaches. But in this situation, looking at Roland, when you go back, his first year before he was a coach, he was a player. Very, very active member. And you could see his player back then. We had no cap really like that with player.
Is that the guy on the Shamrocks?
Yeah, before when you could pay a little bit with
I heard you could pay to get better.
Yeah, you definitely could. But I'm glad that's over. Yeah. so that was the situation then. And I liked him as how he was involved within the community. So I'm just like, man, this guy, he wants to be a coach. I'll go ahead and let him get the opportunity. It was much easier then. You didn't have to go through interview process. And I honestly felt like he was confident enough. I still feel like he knows football. The thing is, he tries to be too different, right? He tries, in my opinion, tries to prove people wrong when he doesn't have to.
He wants to zig when everyone else is trying to zag.
Like for instance, things wasn't working out for Winkler, right? Back then. He brings up these points of him being 36 years old. But he's a 99 overall quarterback, man. And even when you had him at a 99 overall quarterback, you could not get him to produce. Before you got there, even though they kept consistently going 8-8, Winkler was the truth, right? So the problem isn't the player. The problem at that point is you just can't figure out what to put him in, all right? So I'm looking at that situation. I'm just like, okay, well, he's just not. I was telling him, I said, looks like you just, not in the right stuff. You got to figure it out. Next thing I know, he lets him go and signs a safety for $200 million. You know what I'm saying? And so, and it's really also because a lot of people wanted him. A lot of people were jacking up the price as well. Like we could have been talking about somebody else here, but you're the one that went all the way up to $200 million. And it wasn't even like people were jacking up the prices, but he took it to a whole nother level to make sure nobody else could get in the stake. So you're the reason why. Yeah, for a safety. So that's your fault. And then you talk about the story constantly keeps getting flipped to now he's saying that the quarterback, he didn't bring him back because he would cost too much money. Well, if that was the reason why you didn't bring him back, why would you pay a safety $200 million?
Right. Safety is the easiest position to replace in the draft. If you ask me.
So you pay a safety $200 million. And although he's a great one, still you wasted money. And that was whatever excuse you came up with outside of that to say that that's the reason why he didn't sign him back. You can tell, like our new word here, Fry, that's oxy.
That's oxy.
That's oxy, man. That's oxy, man. So off the rip, That's a contradiction. Then he goes on talking about the read option. Did everybody remember where he said he decided to get Russell Rennes in the first place for a read option? He saw one play of him running a read option, wasn't even for a touchdown, wasn't even for a 20-yard gain. It was just a decent read option play. And that was it. He said from that play, that's when he decided I was going to draft Brinker and then put him in at the quarterback position to do the read option. First of all, this is my issue. You couldn't figure things out with Winkler. You traded and got Brinker because of one play. You gassed him up for 3 years, talking about he's going to be the guy. This is the guy. We've been telling you he wasn't from the gate. Now at this point, think of it as, y'all the GMs, but this is the owner's standpoint. I'm looking at this organization and I'm looking at everything that's missed because of these decisions and how they could have been more competitive. And the reason they were competitive in that season where they ran the read option was not because of the read option. The read option was not the reason they made the playoffs. They made the playoffs and won games because their defense was like that. That same year, they had 7 interceptions and 1 game on Bill. Even though it was a backup quarterback, that was 1 game, but they did that multiple times throughout the season and led the season in picks that year. The defense was the reason they made the playoffs. Don't take credit for your offense making the playoffs with read option when even in that season, we were telling you the read option was not doing all that. And you can't take credit just because 1 or 2 games, the read option was successful, but it's not a consistent success. It hasn't been successful in the RFL really ever. It will give you a few games to catch a defense off by surprise, but you are not going to make the playoffs off of read option. On top of that,
too fast. These
and,
are too tough.
And not to mention the prior Maddens, when running that, the fumble rate was crazy. Mm-hmm. So you're already putting your offense at a disadvantage with all that. On top of that, your defense, like I said, is the reason why you made the playoffs. He wants to take credit for his offense, the read option being the thing. We said, look, it worked out at times. We didn't discredit, but at least you showed that it can work, but it was not the reason your team was successful. I'm looking at this team now, and Fry talked about this earlier, that the players on this team, they have talent still. They still have talent. All I want to see is this team compete. Once again, the lie of a read option taking them to the playoffs was never the reason. Your defense was that. Your defense has not been the same since that season. And that was a one-time showing by the Barons, right? So I'm looking at this like, okay, you gassed up this quarterback for 3 years talking about he's all this. You ended a career of a quarterback who was supposed to be in the Hall of Fame because you couldn't figure out how to work with him, and you tried to say you didn't have the money for him, but you paid $200 million to a safety. Then we come in here now, he's on the trade block. Even then, you were not getting anything for Ryan Brinker because people already knew he was not that great of a quarterback. The reason why I'm putting this pressure on him to keep with Brinker is because this was the guy you said you were going to be able to do things with, that you were going to be able to turn this franchise around with, and you stuck to it every time I told you, you might need to change this up. Okay, now a user comes into the play. This guy is obviously not ready. He's a 68 overall coming out. Now you want to go ahead and play him, put him in a situation, and think about this. Everybody keep talking about, it's early progression. No, it's not. It's not that. It's early progression, but it's not going to do much. The reason it's not going to do much is because if you're not winning games, what kind of XP is this guy going to get? What kind of improvement is this? Are you really going to get from this?
And then they go down with the morale. And then
situations like, for instance, like your situation, or talking about my situation with Marquise Washington. Marquise Washington was him. And then we looking at your situation. Your only quarterback that you had on your team was a 71 overall, which Miles McCain right now is better than.
Right.
These are not the same situations.
Well, and so
for little things to try to equate them. That's my issue with it. So I said, if you want, I never said he couldn't do the things he did. That's the reason why he's still here now. That's the reason why he still ran read option. But if you weren't confident from the jump, when I told you that if you go ahead and play Briley and the stuff back and it backfires, then you're out of here. You didn't do it. Now you're getting on the podcast talking about, I didn't do it because Oh, I'm already blanking. But he's saying, no, I didn't play Briley because of his character. Because don't try to put the blame now on Briley.
Yeah,
Like it's
so
his
it was,
fault.
Yeah.
regardless of what everyone might think, I wholeheartedly wanted to start Austin Briley, but it wasn't because he's a user and it wasn't because he's a rookie. Well, then why? Then what are the reasons why you want to start him?
Because he's I don't know what.
Well, and then
four string?
I guess here's one last thing. If we could, I feel like we're all done with this, but this is where I'm just going to kind of put the cherry on the top here. This comment right here just blows my mind, and it makes me feel like this is where I made the Jerry Jones kind of circus analogy. I don't understand this one right here. I'm not starting after this year.
I'm going to talk to you, finish this out, but I'm going to talk to Briley even live on this podcast because this has been an issue with you because you're doing way too much attention seeking. That's the issue with you. You keep trying to put yourself in the center of things and downplay and play the woe is me card. Stop that. I'm telling you that right now. That's not going to get you nowhere in life when you have that type of mentality.
I do recall him talking about he could play better. He could do better. You know, I remember before he was named the starter, he was in the chat talking about that. Because Q brought it up the other day, and I think during the podcast, the RFL podcast, and I remember that specific situation where he was doing that.
Well, but also just from a running a football organization perspective, this doesn't make any sense. Why would you start your rookie, let him get the experience, and then entering year 2, where you think he's going to really start to move forward and possibly develop, that's when you bring in an old veteran and he goes back to the bench? If you're going to move Briley to the bench next year, then keep him on the bench now. Why is he starting now and then going to the bench? That comment just doesn't make any sense. Like no one would do that. Like what you're seeing on the screen, nobody, no coach, no general manager would do that.
Just move Brinker for a pick or some depth on defense.
Yeah,
and
just log
I
off,
sent an offer for
like,
Brinker.
This is me being 100, man. Like I'm not trying to, at the end of the day, y'all know me. I try to keep things under, but sometimes you got to be real with people. You have to be real because I'm not going to be that person that's going to be fake and tell you like, oh, I'll try my best to be pleasant at moments. But if you keep going with this and I could tell you're not getting the message, then that's where I got to be real with you. And like I said, Briley, you're playing too much of this, having people try to, be on your side or man, what's the name for it, man? But like at the end of the day, you're trying to play all these sad notes to get people to,
defensive.
Victim
mentality. You got to chill out with that. Cause I'm gonna tell you right now, if I see that, like even in the league standpoint from other players, this is about to be an offense where I'm kicking dudes out the league for this because it gets tiring. I'm not trying to hear all these other sad things and stuff going on, have people, because you don't want that, because that's a negative mood for the community when you do that, So I just need you to chill out with that. I need people who do this in the community to chill out with that because I'm going to be cracking down on it. Nobody's going to tell you this. They may probably not telling you this in real life about that because that's a negative vibe. And I know people like this, I have family members like this. It's not good when people do that, right? So you need to stop doing that amongst the community and think that you're going to have people sit there, ride for you. And then all the positive stuff, there's nothing wrong with saying positive stuff. But to me, you're saying positive stuff for attention, for people to give you validation and to say, yeah. And it's not that you're genuinely saying that. You're saying it now because you want, you're in the limelight. People are talking about you.
It's almost like he's got a box he's checking off. I said 7 nice things today.
Yeah, like that, and I can tell that you can say it's genuine and or whatever, but you were not doing that before. I know why you're doing it. That's all I'm saying.
And it's not only Briley. Obviously,
it's other people.
Name, but there's other guys in the Discord who do the same thing, and it is manipulative. CP is right. It is a form of emotional manipulation to come in there and suddenly like say something maybe that could be taken the wrong way, and someone comes at you, and then you're the victim. And it's like, what? How does that even make you feel better to feel that way? Like to receive sympathy or things like that from people. It's not healthy mentally, and you're gonna have to. That you won't function.
No, we can't get in the chat after this, but we'll talk. But I've already talked to you. I really don't feel like getting in the chat because I've talked to you about this. This is something that you personally have to break because this is obviously something that I could tell. Like I'm not trying to get on a personal stuff, but this is my field as well outside of this.
Yeah, that's
true. You know what I'm saying? So like for me, you need to personally break this habit for yourself. Stop trying to gain sympathy. That at the end of the day, you are never going to progress that way. Do something about it.
Yeah, and too many times people aren't willing to to own it, and they're not willing to sit there and just be quiet long enough to think about what's going on and just say, all right, this is what I got to do better, and just do better.
Just be better. Hashtag be better, right?
Yeah.
There's no
right.
shortcuts, bro.
There we go.
There's, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, hard work is hard work. That's what you have to do to get to where you want to go. There's no way around it. There's like all the successful people will tell you that that's the reason they're successful, because they just did the work.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. It's as simple as that. Do what you know you need to do to get where you want to go. If you want to be a better person, work on being a better person. If you want to do whatever in life, work on being that and stick to it. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
But in terms of this whole Roland situation, I just wanted to get that stuff up, because to me, it's not the fact that if he starts Briley now, that he's good because we understand the situation. It's all the decisions and things behind the scenes that has led to this, and I'm just tired of it. And obviously, if you were in my situation as a person who owns these teams, and you're seeing this team not reach its potential because of these decisions, what are you going to do? You going to keep that guy still in the coaching situation, in the coaching spot?
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to get on
Yeah,
for
and
that.
that's good, man. There's so much, man. There's so much history in the RFL that we don't know. Most of us come in and we try to jump in the middle and pick up what we can, but there's so much history to this league that we don't know, and there's a lot that we don't see, like you said, like coaches in and out. And I think it's a good thing that we don't always hear the drama of what leads them, because that just waters down and makes this place silly at times. It's professional the way it continue, like it moves on. The RFL machine is moving forward, whether certain people stay or go, and that's the message to send. So guys kind of get to understanding, like, get my game together, get my act together, or the league will move on without me.
That's it.
Well, yeah, man, I appreciate y'all having me on though for this.
Yeah.
I actually got to go ahead roll out, but I wanted to get my last bit out on that and be 100.
Appreciate you hopping on, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We'll talk soon.
All right.
Thanks, Smitty.
I don't know how to leave this thing. Like,
I can do it.
Nice.
I don't know what to do. All right. So, guys, there you go. So we can go ahead and if I had, the sound of I don't know, like a Paul Bunyan driving a spike into a railroad, or John Henry, right? I would just play that over and over. So we can put that one to bed. Unfortunately, guys, I'm running out of time here. So there are a couple other topics that I wanted to get to that I'm just not going to get to. I think I will hold off and probably do next week, because they're not super time sensitive. I can certainly go over all of that next week with you guys as well. So, but one thing that I did want to do real quick before we go and get out of here, Lionel,
I'm here for it.
We'll probably try to get out of here in about 5-10 minutes. So we'll go through this real quick, but I just wanted, yeah, we got games coming up. I wanted to take a quick look at the numbers and just give you guys a little bit of an idea as to what's going on right now. So right now through week 3, and I'm going to throw this disclaimer out there, is that Neon Sports is what is being used to pull these numbers. Neon Sports has not, as of right now, been
updating
real time updating. So there are some numbers on here that may look incorrect, and it might just be because they have not been updated yet. So again, what I'm going to do is I've got the ARC and NRC passing leaders, rushing leaders, and receiving leaders in terms of yards so far through week 3. And again, if there's a number off, it's because of Neon Sports just not updating yet. So I'm going to go ahead and here we go. We have the passing leaders for the ARC and the NRC. And as you can see, Holden Wolf kind of setting the pace there for the Huskies, over 1,000. And then Trey Mason for the Lancers. You've got Reed Wagoner with the Steamers, both over 1,000 yards as well.
I think Chumlee threw for over like 270, 275
in week 3.
Last night.
Oh, well, yeah, that's nothing from week 4. These are always going to be any of the Thursday night games or Friday night games will never be considered on.
Latavian Worrell is the shocker, man. The Elks doing what they're doing. Congrats to Leo Moon being on this list, number 1, and McCall being on this list.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a quick look at some passing leaders throughout the league, and then we'll get to rushing leaders. As you can see here, the NRC is kind of running away with the rushing title here. If you, as a matter of fact, only one ARC running back would even make the top 5 if we did this list on the entire RFL, right? Like Kingston Kenny with 290 yards rushing is the only ARC running back that would even be in the top 5 because he would knock Darius Martin out, and it would be Madison Axel, Tavion Hall, and Amir Williams, Donovan
Langford
Rhodes.
Cloud. I mean, look at that. That's something to take a look at. Even if these numbers aren't 100% accurate, McCall was number 3 quarterback in passing yards, and their running back is number 3 in rushing. So their offense is clicking. The draft picks he made with the receivers and like all the acquisitions, the offense is clicking better. If they can continue to load up on defense, Black Knights could find themselves competitive real soon.
I like this Black Knights team. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I love the transformation that we have seen from Jacob McCall.
Yeah, 100%. Guy stepped up and making plays.
And I'm talking on the field, but honestly, more than anything, I'm talking off the field. Like we're talking about a situation that was borderline toxic. On Discord and in the college series. Like it was really bad. A lot of you might not know it was really bad.
College season 2, McCall and I were not friends.
I mean
he was a lot, but I give him a ton of respect. He dealt with those. This is just what we were referring to about 10 minutes ago, man. He dealt with those situations. He looked at himself, and he's grown up a bunch. And he's now he's one of the guys that's in the league trying to help other people. So I give a lot of respect to him.
And I will say this from a Sacramento Miners perspective. I had 2 picks in the second round last year, and I had conversations with McCall because I had McCall as the second best quarterback in the draft class. I just thought I thought it was DJ, right? This was the DJ draft class.
Yes.
It was DJ, and then I thought McCall was better. Like I think that McCall is a better quarterback than Kai Cash. That was just my opinion. And Kai Cash went in the top 5 or certainly top. I think he went 5th overall or something. And McCall went, I believe, mid second or early second.
I think McCall, Kai, and Leo are all very similar in overall. So I think they're like 81s. Isn't Leo? Leo's in the chat. I think Leo's 81 or 82, and same with Kai and McCall. So
right. And Owen Jack was there, but I didn't have. I just what I saw from McCall on the field was enough for me to put him as my number 2 quarterback. Now, I wasn't going to take him with my first round pick, and I didn't think I was going to take him with my early second round pick because of the issues that we were seeing. And that was enough of a deterrent for me. And I had conversations with him about it. And I told him, I said, look, man, I might draft you. And he knows this, and he's in here now, and he can recall and think back to all those times where we talked. And it's true. I almost drafted him because I knew the writing was on the wall with Chumlee. And I had a feeling that I was eventually going to get rid of Chumlee. And then I didn't. And I said, you know what? I'm just not going to do it. And now here we are. But I just I bring up that story because it's important to understand that guys are capable of going from 0 to hero really quickly if you put in the time and the energy and the work ethic and
you care.
And you care. And McCall deserves that, because for as much as people were ripping him and criticizing him for all of his crazy shenanigans during the college series, he's changed completely. And there was like maybe 5 or 6 people that could tolerate him in the college series too. And now there's probably only 5 or 6 people that don't like him, right? Because he's just become a much different person. And so credit to you, McCall. It doesn't go unnoticed. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for you here, is that it does not go unnoticed. So we do recognize that and we appreciate it. And you've got the Black Knights in a position where, you know, they could be a really good team starting as early as next year.
I think hindsight, that season 7 quarterback class is going to be real big in the league for a while.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think my thought is that every quarterback class that we've seen in the last 3 years, if you're a quarterback in the college series 5, you screwed up. Like, I'll just throw that out there now, and that'll be a topic for way down the line.
for
But
sure.
if you created a
I
quarterback for College
completely
Series 5, you
forget
screwed up.
that DJ, it was the best of those quarterbacks. I forget about it because he's not a user anymore.
Right.
But there's that season 7's gonna stand out.
All right, and then so we got the rushing leaders, and now we'll go to ARC and NRC receiving leaders, and these are the ones that I believe might be a little bit skewed. There might be guys on here. There might be guys that are missing from here because their 3-game totals didn't compute. It only shows them having played 2 games.
I'm gonna go ahead and be a little transparent here. I learned about the rule that you can't trade people that you've drafted in the first 2 rounds because I tried to talk Gunn into trading for a QPOX receiver. I was like, that guy's gonna be a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Keith Guyton, I mean, what he's doing right now with the Huskies is just borderline atrocious. I mean, we're talking.
Darman had that Moss last
night.
Too.
When that was So I mean, Darman obviously has moved up.
But Keith Guyton to me,
Keith Guyton to me is like MVP. Like
in 3 games.
Those are easily MVP numbers if he were to able to keep up that clip.
We're talking about a team that's struggling because of their defense, but they're Keith Guyton still has to be covered.
Yeah,
Cameron Jones is getting thrown to this year. That was something we mentioned earlier. He wasn't getting thrown to in the past.
Yeah, I mean the Dreadnoughts team looks good. I mean, listen, I said this. I believe I said this in the comments on the RFL podcast a couple of weeks ago. But to me, Owen Jack is a sleeper for consideration for MVP. Like his numbers are good. Like obviously, there's other quarterbacks and. If they keep winning, like his name is going to be in that conversation, in that top 7 players talked about for MVP. I firmly believe that if they keep winning and he keeps performing the way that he's performing. So there's a look at the QBs, running backs, and wide receivers through 3 weeks. Again, guys, there's some guys that might not be on here. Neon Sports has not completely updated everything. And
Kiani versus Keith Guyton is going to be something to watch tonight. That's a big matchup.
So we're good. So league leaders right there. The last thing that I want to do, this is a bit of a new thing that I'm going to do for you guys. I'm going to try to do this every week, and every week there will be 1 winner, maybe even 2 winners if more than 1 person get it right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your name, I'm going to throw it into a hat, and then at the end of the season, I will pull 1 winner from all of those, from all these contests. So basically, if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, I'm going to test your RFL knowledge a little bit here. It's a little trivia game that I've put together, and so I'm not sure. Depending on how many guys we have that get it right in a short period of time. I may take multiple people and throw them into the hat for this week. So, Fry, you are not eligible for this.
Yeah, I don't know the questions anyways, but yeah.
You don't know them, but I'm just going to say you're not eligible. And coaches are not eligible. Obviously, this is for players only. And please, if you are a coach and you know the answer, don't put it in there because I don't want anyone else to possibly get it right. So, test your RFL knowledge without any further ado. Name that player. Name that player. You've got, I'm going to say 40 seconds to name that player. He's got 29 receptions. There are 5 letters in his first name, and he's averaging 15 yards per catch. Name that player. I'm going to look in the chat here and see if I get one.
15 real quick and see what you get. I'm gonna guess.
You can have a guess, but you're not allowed to say it out loud. So I'm looking through the chat here. I don't see a right answer yet. All right, guys, your 40 seconds are up in 5 seconds. Do I see another one?
Well, it does got a little bit of downtime. They're about 10 seconds behind us that we can see in the chat.
Okay, all right. I still got nothing, so I'm looking through, and I see nothing. A lot of shots for Amari here. It's not Amari. So let's see. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Because I do see that we have. Okay. So, all right. We're closed out. I do see that we have a winner and probably cheating. See, this is the problem, guys. Don't cheat. It's supposed to be fun. But when you literally throw up the numbers in the chat, well, then that's cheating. Obviously, you didn't know that off the top of your head. 29 receptions, 5 letters in his first name, and 15 yards per catch. The answer is Romeo Jackson,
Oh, nice.
wide receiver for the Memphis Steamers.
And when you got when you have a quarterback that's going off, one guy's going to be getting it. And Wagner's been going off so far for them. Romeo Jackson's been doing good.
And so Darius Hodge was the first that I saw.
Yep. I think it was he was the only one.
And guys, the reason why I say like you have 30 seconds or you have a minute is because I'm trying to make it so you don't have enough time to cheat and go look it up. Like, I mean, for real, like, have some fun with it.
I would have.
If I know that you're going to cheat, then I'll try to come up with questions that you literally can't.
Well, yeah,
and that's no fun.
Kind of funny, like. Which
like,
running back has 2 touchdowns and his birthday's in July?
Like, this is what makes it a little bit fun. Like, and then you got to, so congratulations anyway to Darius Hodge. Your name will be thrown in.
We'll get you a Miners shirt.
It'll be something. So I'm going to throw everyone's name in, and then at the end of the year, I'll pull one name out of a hat, and we'll just go from there. So, congratulations again to Hodge. The correct answer, Romeo Jackson, wide receiver for.
Well, this was a good podcast. We had a lot of interaction in the chat. Had Smitty come on and peel back the curtain a little bit. So this was good all around.
Yeah, and again, guys, there are some topics here that I was ready to discuss and go over with you. We just kind of ran out of time. I wanted to make sure we get out of here before noon on all these. So you have an hour, if not a little bit more, to prepare and get ready for the games this afternoon. So if you have any questions, what's that?
All three of those games in one are going to be good games, all worth watching.
So if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to hit me up on Discord. Be sure to follow the Miners on social media at MinersRFL on Twitter and on Instagram. And don't forget, we've got all the players on there as well. So be sure to find those guys and follow them on socials as well. Until next time, I'm not sure if it'll be on Wednesday. I believe I'm probably going to try to stick to Saturday mornings. I think a lot of you guys like this Saturday morning thing leading up to the afternoon game. So until next time, for my good buddy and future Hall of Fame tight end, Anthony Fry, I am your host, head coach, and general manager of the Sacramento Miners, Chris Dunn. And I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.
Adios.